Today I'm going to replace the fuel injectors on a throttle body fuel injected GMC Safari van, probably same as the Astro van with a 4.3 liter V6. So throttle body injection means that it has two injectors in the middle, kind of like a carburetor, not at every port. So if you have throttle body injection, this is how you do that. First you take the engine cover off. You can watch my engine cover removal video to see how to exactly to do it. But basically there's a screw here, a couple of nut here, couple of strap thingies down here, and then there's a couple of big bolts that you have to reach with a giant screwdriver, one in here and one over here. So let's get inside and see what's happening. All right, step one, take off the air cleaner. Just unscrew the bolt in the top of it. Pretty straightforward operation. And to get the bottom part of the air cleaner out, we've got to remove this stick, the bolt that goes in and holds the wing nut that holds the top of it on. So once I've removed that, it will come out easy. There it goes. Ta-da! All right. So getting started, I'm going to remove this metal collar just so I have a little bit better access. It sits on top of a gasket. There's a round gasket under here. So if you bought a rebuild kit, you can replace that gasket if you like. Pull that off, and then you can really see what we've got working here. So the gas comes in, goes into the fuel pressure regulator, which regulates the fuel pressure, and that's why it's called that. And then you've got one injector over here and one injector over here. So what we're going to do is unscrew all of the little, you can see all the little bolts on top here, and just pop this top off, stick some new injectors in there, and then pop it back together, and also rebuild the fuel pressure regulator as well, just to make sure that that's not bad. And they do tell me that the fuel injectors are not serviceable, so you can't take them out and clean them off and put them back in. I don't know if that's true. I certainly tried it a year or two ago, and it didn't make any difference. The car still ran like crap. Taking them out and spraying them all over with carburetor cleaner. So I'm just replacing them with new ones. The new ones cost $110 on eBay. We'll take a look at them here. All right, so here's what you get for $110. You get two fuel injectors. So you want to make absolutely sure when you buy them that you're buying a set of two, because this car has two of them, so you have to buy two, and it just looks like that. All right, now I'm going to undo all the bolts that hold the top of the fuel injecting system in place, and that has a cover on it that holds the fuel injectors themselves in place, as well as being connected to the fuel pressure regulator mechanism. Now, on some cars, you have to bleed the fuel pressure off of the fuel injection system before you do something like this, otherwise it'll, you'll get gas everywhere. On this one, if it's been sitting for a couple hours, then there's no more fuel pressure in the system, I think, or there's only fuel pressure when it's running. Either way, you don't have to do anything to bleed it. It's not going to spray all over the place when you take it apart. All right, I stuffed a plastic bag in under here inside of the intake manifold to make sure that nothing I drop in there goes all the way into the engine. To remove the injectors, you just pinch on these connectors and lift them up. They're different colors. There's a red and blue here on the right side, and then green and brownish on the left side. The injectors are identical, so it doesn't matter which side I put which one on when I put the new ones in. So now I'm just going to unscrew all these little screws here. They have a sort of a star head on them. And of course put them in order of where I took them out, so I can put them back in the same holes. And then we'll see what happens when the top comes off. And then the top comes off like that. There's a gasket in there you can see that we can replace. Here's the top of the system. So put that aside. Get the gasket out the way. Yeah. And then, I'm gonna put that outside so it doesn't stink up my van. The injector just pressure fits in there. Sometimes it's a little hard to get out. So if you pry on it, now I'm just gonna pry on it a little bit with this screwdriver and get it to pop out, and then it comes out real nice. You can see there's a O-ring that came out with it right here. So we'll be putting in a replacement O-ring there, as well as there's a metal sealing ring as well. Alright, so the kit comes with instructions. And this is the part that we're going to be removing. It's the, well, I guess there's the UPC code. Can you read that? Sorry, I can't get that under the light. There you go. This is in HD. You can probably read that well enough. HO in USA. Alright. So, actual American-made part for my American car. So, we just want to remove these 4 bolts, and there's going to be a spring like this in there under heavy tension, so I want to make sure it doesn't fly up and poke my eye out. And in the instructions it says, do not disturb pressure adjuster screw under spring. So there is supposedly a screw under the spring. I believe that's number 7 here. So I don't know, we'll see if there's a screw under the spring or not. I know some models are different than others. So I've got an envelope full of parts here. Couple of sticks. I don't know what those are for. New gasket with metal plate on it. Ah, another one of these. I shouldn't have bought that other kit. Just a few gaskets to deal with the top part of the of this kit. So I suspect because this is all rusty, and also because there was no gas in it when I took it apart, that there's a leak here, and it's dripping into the manifold while the van is running, and it's causing it to burn extra gas and stink, and sometimes run funny, but I was still able to pass emissions for some miraculous reason. So I'm going to undo these each a little bit at a time, keep my finger on the top here so that if the spring does want to bust free, it doesn't go and get lost. This gasket is pretty chewed up too here, so it might have been leaking at the top, might have been leaking at the bottom, might have been leaking all over. Whoa, there's some tension on that after all, huh? Thanks. Taking it off is easy. Putting it back on with all that pressure will be a bit more of a challenge, I suppose. So, down here, there's nothing that I can see. This might be, on some models, this might be a fuel screw that you can change the pressure with, but it's just a solid thing that's welded in there. So I don't think I can screw up the pressure regulation with this because it just stays the way it is. And then on the bottom of the spring, there's a little plug. Now here's the question. Did they sell me the right part? That's weird. It actually looks like the wrong part was in there. This one fits better. I'm holding this old gasket up to the light bulb just to see if I see any tears in it. It's hard to say. It's gotten thin in places, but I don't see any holes. Where this hole is, that's pretty worn through also. So let's put the new one in and see how she runs. Alright, so let's get this on here. The little cover, you can see it's a little bit of a difference here. There's a little edge right here, and this one's rounded. So the part with the little edge goes against this little block. If you do it the other way, then the edge will interfere with here where the fuel comes through. So that is the proper alignment for it. Put it in there. Then I'm just going to put a bolt in here, and then a bolt in here and a bolt in here. I haven't put the spring in yet. When I put the spring in, it's going to be a lot of tension. So the spring goes on in the proper direction like that. That is beautiful. So now I just try to get 2 bolts in here opposite of each other. One on this side. And one on the opposite side. I'm using my muscles to hold the spring down. I don't tighten them all the way tight, but just down snug. And then put the other bolts on the other corners. Like so. And then once these bolts are snug, I go around opposite, just tightening them up until they're snug. Don't want to torque it down too much and break the gasket, but you definitely want it to be secure so the high pressure gasoline doesn't get all over the place and blow up your engine. Alright, that's good and tight. See, the gasket is pressed down all the way as you look all the way around it. So then when I go to put it back on the car, of course I want to have one of these gaskets on there. And one of these gaskets on here to keep the gas from leaking out when it's all back together. Alright, putting the new injector in, you want to make sure that it has this plastic filter part and also this rubber washer around it. I'm doing my best not to touch this part of it at all while I put it in. And make sure that see the little bump on this side of it right here? Want to make sure that is facing the back of the van. So put it in that way. And then it kind of pressure fits in. And before you put it in, you want to put in a little, there's a little metal washer here and a little rubber washer. So the metal washer goes in first, then the rubber washer, just make sure it's flush with the top of the surface there, and then drop your injector in and push it down to get it to sit in there, just like that. Getting that, making sure that that little peg on the front of it goes into its groove and it sits about this low. And then we'll put the top back on and see what happens. Alright, now when we put the top part back on, there's a gasket, covers over this part, and then there's also a gasket right here, right next to the fuel pressure regulator. So just make sure you have this gasket and that gasket in place. And then get it on there, and I like to screw everything down until it's just a little bit tight, and then kind of work my way around and tighten and tighten and tighten until everything's finally snug. So I'm just going from bolt to bolt, tightening them progressively tighter until they stop and they're good and tight, and then going back to the ones that I started with just to make sure it's all even. Alright, those are all tightened down, so now I just clip the injector electric connectors back on here. Just push them down until they click. Take the garbage bag out of my intake manifold. It's full of gas. And now we'll just put the air cleaner back on and fire it up and go for a ride. Remembering to hook up all the hoses, of course. So first goes on this metal piece, which hooks onto this hose here. Making sure that that there's a gasket at the bottom of it here. I've already replaced that gasket, so I know that it's good. So, and if you haven't checked your air filter in a while, this would be a good time to check it, change it, whatever. That's for another video. Put the air cleaner on top, hooking it up to the clean air intake in the front, popping that back on. Get on, you bastard. And then on the bottom, hooking up the hot air pipe to the manifold. I don't know how much of that you can see down here. There's a pipe that goes to the manifold that gives it some hot air. Then put the stick in the middle. Usually if you can't tell, remember which side of the stick goes up, it's this side. Now in my van you can tell because the side that's inside the engine is not rusty and this side is rusty. And the hole that this little stick goes into is towards the front of the car. That's why there's a bend in the stick. So you screw it down a ways till it's reasonably tight, back it off a half a turn so that it's in the middle of the circle. Put the circular part on the top here, straighten out the air filter. And that is that. So now we find out if all that worked or if we have an engine fire. So let's see what we get. See if it'll get me around the block. All right, contact. Alright, that sounds pretty smooth. Holy crap. That's really smooth. Okay, that sounds good to me. I'll have to test drive it to make sure, but that sounds great. It was kind of popping and missing before, so now it is good. So, I guess, what do we got on this one? I guess if you've gone 215,000 miles and 19 years, it might be a good idea to replace those parts. They've certainly passed a lot of fuel. So hope that helps. It's really an easy job. I mean, out in your front yard, you can do this in an hour. Parts are $110. This kit that I bought on eBay came with all the gaskets that you need taped to the top of it. Fuel pressure regulator kit was another 40 or 50 bucks on top of that. So for under 200 bucks, you can get your old van running like new. Might even pass emissions.